There's literally only one way to make your goth girlfriend more desirable. You turn her into a gamer fangirl. Larian and Mashed really know their fandom. And I, for one, I am thankful. This version of Shadowheart finally got me out of my year-long hiatus from traditional art. But Aizen, you may ask, you have been playing Baldur's Gate 3 for almost a year now, and never felt a desire to draw Shadowheart traditionally before. Why the cartoon Goth-Gamer version of her you only see for like 2 seconds? Good question, dear viewer. I may haven't drawn her on pen and paper, but against all logic and sense, I decided to animate her, and that cursed complex sharp fangirl armor of hers. It drove me almost insane if you can't hear that out, but I kept pushing till it was finally drawn, colored and shaded. And I was actually quite proud of the outcome, even though YouTube thought otherwise. Honest to Salona, if I hadn't shared my video on other sites and apps, that animation would have never even reached 100 views. If you're a small creator, good luck on being discovered. But this didn't make me stop animation. Quite the contrary, actually. But more on that later on. I learned from that small Shadowheart animation that drawing her on paper would have been very difficult, considering that one major slip-up could destroy the entire portrait. And given that I didn't even touch my trusty brush pen in over a year, that was a risk I wasn't willing to take. But then, Goth-Gamer Shadowheart entered the scene, the clouds divided and I could finally see clearly. This was it. And I can't really tell you why exactly this version of her. Maybe it's because of the nasty armor that was gone and replaced with a single under-boob window. Maybe I felt represented as a gamer and part-time goth wannabe. Or maybe it was because I always feel somewhat drawn to edgy women with black lipstick. It was like deciding to whom to talk to at a party when you arrive alone, to be honest. Regular Shadowheart was a popular girl followed around by a group of people. Goth-Gamer Shadowheart was a single girl, leaning against the wall, nipping on a Coca Zero and watching the fish in the home aquarium. It was her. Until the last moments of me sketching her, I didn't even realize that, oh shit, I might even finish her. But I have all the satisfying inking for you brush pen lovers. The inking is by far my most favorite part of the process. It feels like a meditation. The lines are already sketched out and you just have to follow them. And then there's this also delicious feeling of impending doom if you slip up just once. The stakes are raised because there's no going back once the line is drawn. Because there's no Ctrl-Z in traditional art. You can try and save it by drawing over it, but you will see that trying to cover up a black line is harder than you might have thought. I sped up the video and that's why you can hardly see it, but I do take a pause here and there between lines to gather my focus. If my hands are shaky, which can have multiple causes, I need a break. If you follow my work, you can see that I love to draw digitally. But that's completely different. In digital, you strive for absolute perfection and will therefore not make little happy mistakes, like Bob Ross used to say, that make the artwork special in its own way. Not that mistakes don't happen in digital too, it's just if you have a mistake in your digital drawing, you are deciding to leave that there. With a traditional medium, you need to work the mistake out with the materials you have at hand, and will never therefore truly fix it like you intended it to work. You might disagree on that opinion, but please try and draw something with any traditional medium before, and after finishing it, tell me it doesn't feel much more different than finishing a drawing digitally. Again, this is not about traditional is more beautiful than digital. It's about the feeling of accomplishment that feels much greater when you create something on paper or a canvas. Alright, that aside, let's get into coloring. Every color I use in this drawing will be mentioned, because on this channel we don't gatekeep colors. Last year when I went to my local arts and crafts store to stock up on Copic refills, I was approached by a guy in his early 20s and a kid who was with him. He told me that he and his little brother really wanted to learn how to draw with these expensive markers. They were big fans of Dragon Ball and asked me what colors to use for Son Goku. Thank goodness they chose a character with an easy color palette, but that's how you usually start out when you buy your first colors. You usually start with the colors of a character you want to draw and expand from there on out. I think when I started out with alcoholic markers in 2015, that was one of the hardest things for me too. I thought, okay, these are expensive, so just get the colors of the characters that you want to draw. Back then, I was reading the Suicide Squad comics and started to fall in love with the Limelight twins. She-Hulk was also amazing, and She-Go from Kim Possible was one of my all-time favorites. So I got light to dark green tones, some neutral grays and orange. After that, I expanded my collection whenever I needed new colors for the next character. I recently counted, and at this moment I have at least 205 different Copic colors in my collection. Not too shabby from where I started out, I would say. In the cartoon version, Shadowheart's eyes are just brown, but I wanted to make them more realistic like they are in the video game, so I mixed 3 colors to draw them. I started around the pupil with a light brown and quickly blended the moss green and filled most of the iris with it. I colored the edges of the iris with a dark green and blended that with the moss green too. I rarely make the pupils just black. You can if you want, but I just tend to fill it out with a fitting darker color. This version of Shadowheart has 2 different hair colors. Since I can't draw white, I have to sell the illusion of it by drawing in neutral grey tones. This is just a preference of mine, but coloring darker hair colors is always so much more fun, because you can play more with the lighting and with the shades, and actually, it's that contrast that makes it more beautiful. Drawing something with a metal shine to it is always so satisfying. I am using cool grey tones, and also here I have to watch the contrast between lighter and darker tones to imitate the metal look. The gem in the tiara looks like it has multiple colors in the end, but I just used one marker. I left out the shine and colored the rest of the gem, and then went back with the same color to create a bit of depth. I went about the cushions in the headphone the exact same way, by sketching out the highlights first and then going darker layer by layer, softly blending the colors together. For the pink parts of the headphones, I didn't have the right Copic marker, but I felt lucky when I discovered that I had bought a fitting color in one of those big cheaper sets. These ones are called Touch 5, and for the main part I used the one named Azalea Purple. After the color dried, I went over the parts I wanted to be dark. As I'm coloring the headphones, I realized that I made a little mistake around the ears. You see, the ears are not rounded, but have an edge to them. I quickly corrected that with my brush pen, waited for it to dry, and then sketched out the cat ear light. The tongue was rather quickly done, because I only used one color for it. I am drawing the choker in neutral grey tones, while using cool grey tones for the ring and the spikes. Because leather is neutral grey, and metal should always be drawn in cooler tones. Usually I am waiting till the end to put the highlight in the eyes, but this time I could not wait. The cartoon version of the net shirt leaves the skin in a dark grey, but since I'm going for a more semi-realistic style, I looked up some references, which is important. You should always do that if you are unsure on how to color something specific. I found a net shirt on Amazon that looked very closely to what Shadowheart was wearing. You can clearly see the skin color showing from under the net part. So I colored the skin like I usually would, and then went over it with a light neutral grey tone. I tested it, any darker color would have covered the skin color up, and we wanted to show. Drawing the lines of the net was fun. I used the hard end of my marker so every line would be almost equally thick. I had to be fast, because if I lingered too much, the ink would have bled into the paper and ruined that part of the drawing. Thank God that didn't happen. As I was going for the shirt, I realized that I missed something else. There was a motif on that shirt. If I wasn't a fan of the franchise, I'm not sure if I would have recognized it. It's the Romic Free behind the Baldur's Gate 3 logo. I sketched it, and because it was just a lifeless shirt motif, I used a thin multi-liner for, well, the lines. The rest from here on out is pretty simple. It's just like the rest. I started from the brightest color and then moved to the darker ones, step by step, layer by layer. If you haven't noticed, I already had to cut a lot of the materials I had. But if I would have included all the footage from my recordings, we would be sitting here together for the next 5 hours. But if you want a longer cut, then just tell me, and I can make it happen. But I'm not sure if I would include commentary. I mean, if you can't hear it out, but I'm struggling a lot recording this, because I'm not used to talk so long in English, and I never realized that I have such a strong German accent. It's like I watch all my series and all my movies in English, and you never hear yourself talk. And then suddenly you start recording yourself and you hear your own voice, and it's just like, where is that accent coming from? That's not what I'm hearing in my head. Maybe it goes away in time, or maybe I'm stuck with it forever. I don't know. I hope it doesn't bother you. I'm trying not to get bothered by it. But just tell me if you want me to talk slower or include subtitles or talk about something specific about the process. That's important for me, so I can improve. And we are almost at the finish line. One of the last things I did was the PS5 flight, which was unexpectedly so much fun. It's just 2 colors, but blended together they look so magical. Once the portrait was done, I used a complementary color to separate her from the background. Because I used the color for the gem in her tiara just once, and because I believe it's the color most fitting to her, I decided for the amethyst once again. And we are finished! Thank you for following along for as much as you did. If you want to draw this version of Shadowheart too, then feel free to use the colors displayed. This should make it a lot easier for you. And please add me if you do. I really want to see your artworks. Editing this video actually took so long that the A4 prints of Shadowheart arrived. If you want a copy and also want to support my channel, you can get one in my shop in the description. Now, as promised, I have been working on a little Baldur's Gate 3 animation for quite some time, and if everything runs smoothly, we should be able to finish it in the next couple of weeks. I'm getting support by my amazing background artist, but I do wish I had more money to pay more artists, so we could get it done faster. Some nice beginner artists from Reddit wanted to work on it for free, because they told me that they loved the game and the style I was going for. But this is something people did to me back when I started out as an artist. And that's why I refuse to hire talent I cannot pay. It's just immoral, man. I also have a short little Wings Club animation / showcase that I hope to finish this summer. It's a little side project that really grew on me because of the recent reboot and my disappointment in it. Well, that's a topic for another time. And I also want to draw more traditional pieces, of course. Oh god, there's so much I want to draw. Maybe even gather enough material to exhibit at a convention once again. My last one was in 2019. How time flies. Anyway, that's all from me. Try to create something today. This world needs more passionate artists. Thank you, bye! Cat ear light. Cat ear light. God. The light that is coming out of the ears of the cat. God. Out of the cat's ears.